And I looked at her and smiled, and I said, that's called compounding trauma. And it's a thing that people don't talk about. And it's a real thing. And she said, oh, it has a name? Yeah, it has a name.
Yeah.
It's called compounding trauma, and it's real hard to heal from.
Yeah, and you talk about teacher school a lot
Yeah.
in the book, and that was going to be one of my questions. One of my notes is, had they covered anything related to potential trauma with students or, anything of the sort? So nothing.
No. It was all like, the fancy word is pedagogy, right? So your methodology of teaching and like how you do it. And it was all pedagogical, and it was all like lesson planning and objectives and grouping and how to do all these things. But nothing like, here's how an angry parent should be handled.
Wow.
Here, and man, parents get really angry sometimes.
Sure.
And I used to get so offended by that. And now I just let them talk. And then I say, how can I help?
Yeah.
Because the truth is, when people are angry, most of the time they just want to be heard.
Right.
So, okay, let's talk about that. Let's figure this out. But at 23, when I had someone's dad hollering at me on the phone about using the pool for 45 minutes before school, I didn't have any clue how to handle that. 37-year-old me would handle that in a completely different manner than 23-year-old me handled it. And I think that's kind of the essence, some part of the essence of what we're getting at in the book too, is how can we support people who are beginning, little teachers, babies, in the things that are actually things they're going to face. You can write all the lesson plans you want, but how can we like hold people up when they're so exhausted they can't think straight or see straight? And we have a brand new teacher in our department this year, and she is amazing. She's going to be an incredible teacher. I'm not going to say her name because, but she's incredible. Sure. And she's also 22 years old teaching juniors. And I feel her. And I just want to hug her. And I can't because COVID. But I really just want to hug her because there are so many things that she's facing and she's having thrown at her that I'm 100% sure no one taught her how to cope with.
Really?
I'm 100% sure.
Still today, they're not, even with as much as we've gotten used to school shootings and things like that, like they're still not preparing teachers that way, you think?
I think as far as school violence goes, they're doing an incredibly better job.
Okay.
But as far as like how to answer someone's mom when they're really mad, or how to, discipline and things. Discipline is hard. Discipline is hard, and you have to finesse and develop that over time. And I'm not sure how you teach that.
Yeah.
But man, school safety has come such a long way in 15 years. Like, when I was in danger, the day that I was in danger, it never even occurred to me not to go to school. Like, I just got in the car that Friday morning and I went to work and I carried on about my day.
Yeah.
And now they would say, you need to go home and don't come back until we are sure that this is okay. But it never even occurred to me. And I don't think it occurred to my administration. And that's because 14 years ago, life was real different.
Right.
And training was real different. And so they did the best they could with what they had. And, they took care of me the only way they knew how. And they took care of my best friend who was in danger as well, the only way they knew how, the best way they knew how. But, it's come a long way. We practice drills, and our kids know what to do. And it's a double-edged sword. You're a parent, so your 6-year-old practices lockdown drills.
Sure, yeah.
And that's awful.
That's awful, right. But they're preparing teachers for those potential incidents with ways to be as safe as possible in the classroom. But are they preparing teachers for the trauma that might come after it?
No.
Even for events that are just almost unfolding, like what you went through. You went through a situation where you had an increased police presence in the school. They thought something might happen, but it didn't necessarily happen. at least not that day,
right?
And not in the school, and but those events are traumatic in a way. So do they prepare teachers any better now for how to handle that situation once you leave the classroom?
I don't think they do. I think, what unfolded with Kevin unfolded, and that unfolded on a Friday night, and I was back in class on Monday morning, and I've been back in class every day since then.
Yeah.
It was my responsibility to seek what I needed, but I didn't know I needed anything. And I think sometimes we have these things that happen to us and we don't realize their sort of long-term effects, right? So we have these things that happen, and I just went to school.
Yeah.
I went to prom. I went to prom the day that the very next day.
Yeah.
And I just carried on with myself. And I think that that's probably okay. I don't think there was anything wrong with that. What I struggle with is that, like, mental health wise,
right,
there is no one, and guidance counselors are for kids. They're not for teachers. And we have some like employee assistance things and stuff like that where I currently teach. And I think that's great. But I don't know that there's anyone who's really going, hey, how are you? Right? Like, are you okay?
Yeah.
And a lot of times the answer is no. I had a real interesting interaction with a colleague, 2 weeks ago. I was in the copy room during my prep period, getting ready for class, and she came in and we were just kind of catching up. She's a friend, she's great. But she has had unbelievable trauma in her life, not from school, just unbelievable trauma in her life. She lost her husband to suicide. Lots of things. But she said, I was talking to another teacher, and she was saying that all these things are happening with COVID over and over and over again, like this change and that change and this change and that change, and it just keeps coming. And I looked at her and smiled, and I said, that's called compounding trauma. And it's a thing that people don't talk about. And it's a real thing. And she said, oh, it has a name? Yeah, it has a name.
Yeah.
It's called compounding trauma, and it's real hard to heal from. And so, is there a mental health component in place for teachers? No. And should there be? Yes. Teachers, we're going to lose people out of this profession and it's never because of kids, and it's hardly ever, economic, even though, people are always like, teachers aren't paid enough. We're not, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
And it's never been why I've ever considered leaving teaching.
Yeah.
It's more about, am I okay?
Yeah.
Right? Am I able to shoulder all the things that I'm shouldering on a daily basis, year after year after year after year? And it's really, it's hard for me to, sometimes it's really hard for me to keep doing that. And I know I'm not by myself. I know I'm not the only one to ever say, this is too heavy. Carrying this is too heavy.
For more long-form discussions like this, check out our full episodes playlist here. And for specialized content, check out our featured clips here. And also check out our other featured channels for more great examples of truth in dialogue.